My name is Beatrice, I'm 33 years old, and I've always been the type of person who remembered birthdays, showed up with a gift, and offered to help clean, even if I hadn't caused the mess. But my family never made things easy. I'm not exactly the black sheep, but more like the invisible one. I'm not dramatic or loud, and I've never had a big fight with anyone. Yet, over the years, I've felt the slow, quiet burn of being left out. Small things, group chats I wasn't added to, inside jokes I didn't get, family photos where I was mysteriously absent, even though I was there, standing right beside them. I always gave them the benefit of the doubt. They forgot, I'd tell myself. It's not personal. I clung to that narrative longer than I should have, I think. Part of me thought that if I kept showing up, being helpful, maintaining kindness, they would eventually see me again. The problem with being quietly excluded is that it gives people plausible deniability. And that's the worst part. No one has to say you're not wanted, they just make you stop expecting an invitation. Last month, I was at my nephew Mike's 7th birthday party, my sister's son. I got him a Lego Star Wars set he'd been begging for, and even helped him build the first half. I stayed after the party as the other adults left, and helped wash dishes while my sister scrolled on her phone. Casual chat, pleasantries, nothing out of the ordinary. It felt normal, like maybe, just maybe, things were evening out. So when I said, I can't wait for the big family dinner tomorrow, genuinely looking forward to seeing everyone, it was with total sincerity. My cousin Chloe paused mid-forkful of cake. Then she burst out laughing. Wait, you don't know? It was yesterday. My stomach dropped, and I turned to my aunt across the kitchen, half expecting it to be a bad joke. But no, she pulled out her phone without hesitation. She had pictures, a long table set up in my parents' backyard, fairy lights, champagne flutes. Everyone dressed up. To my horror, even distant relatives I hadn't seen in years were there. Toasts, speeches, kids playing, group photos. It wasn't some impromptu backyard barbecue. It was the family dinner, the one my mom hosts every summer, which is basically a reunion. My aunt started swiping through the gallery as if she were showing me vacation photos. Oh, this was right before dessert. That's when your mom gave her little speech about being surrounded by all her blessings. She said the last part slowly, as if she'd realized too late that perhaps I shouldn't be hearing this. But the moment was already poisoned. My face grew hot, my mouth dry, and then my sister, who hadn't said a word until now, looked up from drying a plate and mumbled, "Maybe you'll get the hint next time." Just like that. I didn't say anything. Didn't even move. I just stood there for a few seconds, watching her casually wipe down a platter, as if she hadn't just stabbed me in the chest. The air suddenly went out of the room. I dropped the sponge, walked into the living room, picked up the envelope with Mike's birthday card and the extra gift card I'd tucked in as a surprise, and walked out. On the drive home, I couldn't stop replaying her words. Get the hint. I played them over and over, the way she said it, not angry, not malicious, just tired, as if it was long overdue. As if I was some clueless interloper who hadn't picked up on the message, despite increasingly obvious signals. As if I was a burden for still believing I had a place. I'll admit, I cried in the car. I'm not proud of it, but I'm not ashamed either. It wasn't about missing the dinner. It was about the final clarity, the unmistakable confirmation that I was no longer one of them. That I had become, at best, a distant obligation. That night, I couldn't sleep. I just lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, replaying years of slights I had ignored. The time I was told Christmas dinner was immediate family only, and then they posted group photos with people I barely recognized. The group chats I only found out about through screenshots. The forgotten birthday wishes. The jokes I never fully understood because they happened in rooms I wasn't invited into. But here's the thing. I'm not someone who seeks revenge. I'm not petty. I don't want to get back at anyone. What I wanted, what I needed, was to finally be done. No more hoping. No more showing up, no more handing out kindness like candy, praying it would buy me a seat at the table. I started planning something that night. Not revenge, at least not in the usual sense. Something more permanent. Something they wouldn't see coming, because they never see me at all. The first step was financial. For the past few years, I'd been doing well. I work in social media profile management, and while I'm not a millionaire, I've made smart investments, especially in the last few years when I got into property management. No one really asks me about my life, so they don't know I now own 3 rental properties. They don't know I'd been quietly helping my parents cover things like roof repairs and plumbing issues through anonymous donations I set up for my company. I never needed credit for it. I just wanted to support them because they are my parents. Or were. A week after the birthday party, I got a call from my mom. She was frantic. Their home's central air conditioning had gone out during the first heat wave of the season. They said repairs will cost over $8,000, she said, her voice trembling. The guy you usually work with said he didn't get the usual maintenance contract this year. Did something happen with the fund? I calmly told her I had dissolved the donation program. She was confused at first, but I didn't elaborate. I'm sure you and everyone who was at the dinner will figure something out, I said. Silence on her end. I could almost hear her thoughts racing. I didn't wait for a response. I just politely ended the call. That same day, I called my lawyer. There were other things I had funded over the years. College savings for my niece, emergency dental work for my uncle, a part-time assistant my sister used to help with her business. I had receipts for everything. None of them knew I had tied those funds to clauses and agreements. And none of them knew those clauses could be canceled with a single signature. I signed, sent the letters, froze the accounts. It took about 2 weeks for the shockwave to hit. My inbox flooded with calls, voicemails, missed video calls. One from my cousin that just said, "What is going on?" But I didn't answer. And then came the family group chat. Not the one I'd been excluded from, but the old one, the one I'd started 5 years ago when Grandpa passed away and everyone wanted to coordinate funeral logistics. I still had admin rights. I renamed the chat, maybe get the hint, and then one by one removed every member. I didn't say a word. Just silence. But that was just the beginning, because there was still one thing I hadn't taken away. And once I did, everything changed. The thing I still hadn't taken away, the last thread that still tied me to them, was the lake house. It wasn't technically mine, not entirely. It had belonged to my grandparents and then passed jointly to my mother and her sister, my Aunt Silene. After Silene passed, her half went to my cousin Chloe, the same cousin who laughed at me for missing the family dinner. Years ago, when my mother fell behind on some payments, I quietly bought out her share. Legally, I owned 50%, but no one ever updated the family's mental scoreboard. They still treated it like grandma's place. Everyone used it freely, weekends, holidays, even entire summers. And I let them for years. I never booked it for myself. I never said no when someone wanted to use it. I even paid for the new dock last summer, quietly, no fanfare. But now the lake house was a stage, and I had the script. I waited for Memorial Day weekend, when the entire family typically descended upon it. It had been a tradition for over a decade. Barbecues, bonfires, the kids fishing off the pier while the adults got giddy on cheap drinks and louder as the sun went down. I used to love it. But I hadn't been invited for the last 3 years. This time, though, I didn't need an invitation. I just needed to show up. 3 days before the weekend, I filed the paperwork to restrict shared access to my half of the property. Thanks to a little-known clause in the deed that allowed any owner to partition use if conflict arose, my lawyer made it foolproof. I wasn't stopping them from using the house. I was just requiring a co-ownership agreement to do so. Chloe, of course, wasn't paying attention to any legal correspondence, far too used to me being good guy Beatrice. On Friday morning, I drove up early, unlocked the house, parked my truck sideways in the driveway so no one could get in behind me, and then I waited. It didn't take long. Around noon, 3 cars pulled up. My sister, Chloe, and my mom, plus the kids and spouses. They were laughing until they saw me. Chloe got out first. "You're here," she said, her voice tight. I smiled. It's a holiday. Thought I'd enjoy the lake. She walked right up to me, arms crossed. "Well, we planned on staying for the weekend." I told Mom she could have the master bedroom. "That's going to be a problem," I said, not unkindly. "The house is locked down for co-owner review. You would have seen the notice if you'd opened your mail." She blinked, confused. "What notice?" My sister chimed in, already annoyed. "Beatrice, don't be dramatic. We've been coming here forever. Just because you didn't get invited to one dinner." I held up a hand, keeping my voice even. It wasn't one dinner. And it's not about the dinner. It's about respect, something this family stopped giving a long time ago. My mom finally approached, her voice soft. Beatrice, honey, we didn't mean to hurt you. It's just, things got busy. You know how it is. I looked at her and for a second I almost softened. Almost. But then I remembered all the times she'd excused my sister's cruelty, laughed off the exclusion as a misunderstanding, or played peacemaker, asking me to be the mature one again and again. I know exactly how it is, I said. That's why I'm here now. This house is no longer a shared vacation spot. If you want access, we draft a new agreement. We split maintenance. We alternate use. Or, I shrugged, we sell. You wouldn't dare. Chloe said, her voice rising. You're going to destroy family tradition because of what? Hurt feelings. I met her gaze steady. No. You already destroyed the family part. I'm just handling the paperwork. They tried to yell, to beg, to blame. My mom cried. My sister called me selfish. Chloe threatened to sue. But it didn't matter. I had everything documented. The messages, the receipts, the clause in the deed, and the silence I'd been drowning in for years, which had finally vanished. In its place, there was clarity. Cold, clear, and necessary. Eventually, they left, not without some final words thrown over their shoulders. But I didn't flinch. I stood on that porch until the cars disappeared down the gravel road. Then I went inside, popped open a beer, and sat in the old rocking chair my grandmother used to use. That night, I built a fire in the backyard, watched the embers rise to the sky like sparks from a forgotten 4th of July, and for the first time in a very, very long time, I felt like I belonged somewhere. But the final part came the next morning. Because I wasn't done. I had something else to send, and when they opened it, they'd realize the real consequences hadn't even begun. The next morning, I woke up to the sound of birds and nothing else. No kids yelling on the pier, no Bluetooth speakers blaring on the porch, no smell of my sister's perpetually burnt bacon. Just quiet. It was almost eerie how peaceful it was. And I liked it. I made myself a cup of coffee, walked barefoot down to the water, and watched the morning mist curl off the surface like steam from a simmering secret. I had a lot on my mind, but I wasn't sad. Just focused, resolved. The night before had been a boundary, but now it was time to make it permanent. Before heading into town, I stopped at the town's post office and dropped off a thick envelope, addressed to my family's lawyer. Inside was the final piece of the puzzle, my formal decision to sell my half of the lake house. Not to just anyone, but to a buyer I had already approved, a private, out-of-state couple. No kids, no drama, just retirees who wanted a quiet retreat for the summer months. I even offered them a slightly better deal if they agreed to one condition, that they put up a gate. Not a huge one, just enough to clearly mark their half and legally deter any accidental visits from extended family members who had previously treated the house as their personal vacation hub. But the envelope didn't just include the sales contract. It also contained my exit letter. A single page folded over the documents, addressed to my entire family. I wrote it slowly and carefully, over 2 nights. I didn't want to be cruel. I just wanted to be honest. Surgically honest. Here's a part of what it said. To everyone who forgot me, you might not have realized it, but over the years, I became a ghost in this family. Not because I pulled away, but because you silently pushed me there with your exclusions, your silences, your smug smiles when I showed up, still believing I mattered. I was the helper, the giver, the quiet one, the extra at the table. I never asked for much, just a chair and a little kindness. But your message was clear. I am not family. I am a resource, a wallet, a second option, a punchline. So now I'm getting the hint. You won't have to forget to invite me anymore. You won't have to roll your eyes when I show up or whisper in the kitchen when I leave the room. I'm done with all of it. I'm not angry. I'm not vengeful. I'm simply done. This house, it was the last place where I still felt connected to any sense of belonging. And now I've let it go. The buyers are lovely. They will take care of it. And don't worry, they won't tolerate unwelcome guests, not even on holidays. Consider this letter official notice. I am no longer available for guilt trips, gaslighting, or group chats. I wish you all the best, truly. But from now on, my peace comes first. Beatrice. 3 days later, my phone vibrated nonstop. Missed calls, voicemails, a flood of text messages that went from confused to panicked to furious in a matter of hours. My sister, who hadn't said a kind word to me in over a year, suddenly had a lot to say. Things like, "You're breaking Mom's heart," and "You're acting like a child." My cousin Chloe sent a wall of texts that started with, "Are you really selling the house?" and ended with, "You're going to regret this." But the one that really got me came from my mom. It was just one sentence. "Why are you doing this to us?" I stared at that message for a long time. I almost replied. I even typed out a few different things, some harsh, some gentle, one version that just said, "Because you let them." But I deleted it all, because she already knew. A week later, the sale closed. The new owners took over. The family tried to block it, but since Chloe hadn't kept up her end of the maintenance and taxes, and I had majority rights on the deed, thanks to a little-known clause I had activated through my company, they couldn't stop it. Legally, financially, emotionally, it was done. Summer came and went. They ended up renting an Airbnb on the lake, 2 towns over. I saw the photos on my cousin's Instagram. The same pier, the same forced smiles, the same energy of pretending nothing had changed. Except it had. Because next time they needed a favor, there wouldn't be a Beatrice to call. No silent supporter to pick up the slack. No wallet with feelings, as they once called me behind my back on an open mic during a group Zoom I wasn't supposed to hear. And while they struggled to adjust, I was building something better. A life where I wasn't invisible, a new circle of friends who saw me, appreciated me, laughed with me, and never made me beg for a seat at the table. It wasn't about revenge. It was about freedom. 2 months after the house sale finalized, something interesting happened at work. My company launched a new mentorship initiative, a paid program where we invited applicants from across the region to train in social media profile management. It was designed for people looking for a fresh start. Guess who applied? Chloe. She didn't realize the application would land directly on my desk. And she definitely didn't expect the small note I stapled to her rejection letter. Just 6 words, "Maybe you'll get the hint next time." The weeks that followed were quieter than I expected. No more calls, no more texts. It was as if, after years of quiet slights, the silence had finally become mutual. And for the first time, I didn't feel like I needed to fix it. I stopped checking their social media. I removed myself from the last vestiges of family email chains. My phone was quiet, and my mind was clearer than it had been in years. But clarity doesn't mean peace comes easy. There were nights I'd lie awake, wondering if I'd gone too far, if I should have just kept being the quiet one, the reliable one, the one who bit her tongue to keep a fragile family illusion intact. That internal guilt had been a worn coat, familiar, even comforting in its twisted way. But guilt, I realized, is a tool manipulators use when full control no longer works. It was hard to let it go, but I did. Because something else started to grow in its place. Something stronger, dignity. A sense of boundaries. A strange, but welcome, pride in the fact that I had, for the first time, chosen myself over people who had proven repeatedly that they wouldn't have chosen me. Work got better too. I got promoted. Turns out, when you're not constantly drained by toxic family dynamics, your brain has more room to thrive. I finally took that trip to Prague I'd been putting off for years. I went alone, spent 2 weeks wandering through forests and sipping matcha tea on quiet balconies. I didn't post about it, didn't announce it to the world. I just lived it. Fully. Quietly. For myself. The last thread snapped on Thanksgiving. Traditionally, it was hosted at my parents' house, a huge production, stuffing recipes copied from Grandma's old notes, my dad's dry turkey, the usual arguments about who sat closest to the fireplace. And I, of course, if invited, usually got the far end of the kids' table or the folding chair by the door. No one really noticed when I stopped going a few years ago. But this year, things were different. That morning, there was a knock on my door. It was my father. I hadn't seen him in almost a year. He looked older, a little thinner. His hair, once jet black, was grayer than I remembered. He held a foil-covered plate, and his eyes were bloodshot, Not from crying, I don't think, but from that long, slow kind of weariness that happens when life finally forces a man to sit with his choices. "Can I come in?" he asked. I didn't answer. Just stepped aside. He sat at my kitchen table and put the plate down. He didn't offer it, didn't explain it. Just stared at the wood for a while, as if it held answers he didn't have. "Your mom's not doing well," he finally said. I nodded. That tends to happen when you lose control over people. He winced. Whether it was the words or the calm way I said them, I'm not sure. "She's sorry, Beatrice. She says it every day." I poured him a glass of water and sat opposite him. She had years to say it to my face. He looked like he wanted to argue, then sighed and said, "You were right to walk away." I didn't expect that. He continued. "I told her we should have handled things differently, that we shouldn't have treated you like a stranger in your own lineage. I tried to talk to your sister about it. She says you're being dramatic, that you're holding a grudge." I laughed softly, not from amusement, just disbelief. "Of course she does. She's not doing well either. Her shop went under. She's living with us now. Your mom's under a lot of stress and—" He looked at me, really looked at me finally. "I'm not here to guilt you. I'm here because I realized something. You weren't the one who abandoned the family. We abandoned you. And we got used to the idea that you'd never fight back." The silence between us hung heavy. Then he added, "I read your letter." I raised an eyebrow. "The one you sent the lawyer?" He forwarded me a copy after the house sold. I read it 3 times. Cried every time. Didn't know what to say. "You're a better woman than I ever gave you credit for," he said. "I'm sorry it took losing the house and losing you to see that." I believed him. I don't know why, but I did. There was a raw edge to his voice. Not theatrical, just exhausted. I got up, went to the fridge, and pulled out a small pumpkin pie I'd bought the day before. I cut 2 slices, put one in front of him. "No turkey," I said, "but that's real whipped cream." He smiled a little. We didn't talk much after that. Just ate. 2 people with a lot of history between them and no real map for the future. But it was something. Not a full repair, not a reconciliation, but a start. And I made it clear that if things were ever different, it would be on my terms now. No more appeasing, no more standing in the background of my own story. A few days later, I got a letter in the mail. Handwritten from my mom. I read it twice, then put it away. I wasn't ready to reply. Maybe I never would be. Forgiveness doesn't come on demand, and it certainly doesn't come without change. Weeks passed. I was easing into winter with a kind of peace I hadn't known in years. Real peace. Hard-earned peace. Then, just before Christmas, I got a text message. Not from my sister, not from Chloe. From Mike, my nephew. It was a video message. "Hi, Aunt Beatrice," he said, grinning toothlessly into the camera. "Mommy said we're not supposed to talk to you, but I miss you." I told her that's silly. "Hope you're doing good. I'm building another Lego spaceship. It has 3 engines this time." Behind him, I heard my sister's voice yell, "Mike, give me that phone." The video cut out. I watched it again and again. My chest ached in a way that had nothing to do with anger, just sadness. Not for me, but for him. For what he was being dragged into, the cycle of exclusion, the weaponization of silence. He didn't deserve that. So I sent a video back. "Hey buddy," I said, smiling. "That spaceship sounds awesome. I bet it's the fastest in the galaxy. I miss you too. And I'm always here, no matter what anyone says, okay?" I never heard back, but that was okay. Because I meant it. The revenge was never really about hurting them. It was about stopping the pain they inflicted on me. About putting up walls not to punish, but to protect. And maybe, just maybe, someone in the next generation won't grow up feeling invisible. Maybe they'll learn it's okay to say no, to draw boundaries, to walk away from people who only love you when it's convenient. As for me, I'm doing well. I bought a new place, smaller, cozier, with a real fireplace and a wide porch. I host game nights with friends, cook dinners that aren't thinly veiled critiques. I laugh more, sleep better. And when old photos pop up on my phone from family gatherings where I was standing off to the side, half smiling, half waiting, I just swipe past them. Not because I'm bitter, but because I don't need them anymore to know who I am. Thank you for listening to Beatrice's story. Let me know in the comments if you've ever felt excluded by your own family. But know that you have value, and it's not measured by the opinions and attitudes of others. You are very important. If you liked this story, please like and share this video so more people feel heard, and subscribe to the channel for more inspiring stories.